Okay. All right, Mary, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. What time is it now where you guys are based?
Well, it's 5 o'clock in Nigeria. 5 o'clock
Okay.
in the evening.
5 o'clock in the evening. Fantastic. So you guys are almost done with your day. I am a little bit jealous. It is just noon over here in New York, and there's still a whole day ahead of us at Creative Brain for both me and Adam, who I'd love to introduce to you guys. Some of you probably know him from the past masterclasses that we've had together. We both ran Creative Brain, and we're very excited to be here. I'll hand over to you for a short intro, Adam, in just 1 second. Can we get the slides up just to make sure everybody can see the presentation for today, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I don't have screen sharing rights at the moment, so there we go. Now I think I do. There we go. Perfect. Let's go ahead and make that full screen. Can you see the slides okay?
Yeah,
yes,
I can see them. Can everybody else? Perfect. All right, guys. So it looks like we are ready. Okay, so today we are going to tell you a little bit about PURPOSEPRENEUR, which is the program that we have created at Creative Brain, really looking at how to make our development plans, our journey as professionals, first of all, purpose-centric, and second of all, aligned to what type of impact we as individuals want to create. And we'll tell you a little bit about the program. We'll tell you a little bit about what it is about purpose, that it is such an enigmatic word, and is there any science behind it, and so on and so forth. So on today's agenda, we've got three questions. One, do I need to be a purposepreneur, right? So let's dive a little bit into the future, and let's make sure that it actually makes sense. Then we're going to take
Mary, sorry.
Yeah.
Just a quick comment here. So we've got one person raising their hand, Eunisa. And also just a quick note. So for anybody on the call, if you could just put yourself on mute while we're going through the presentation, that would be super helpful, just to limit the background noise a little bit. Mary, do you want to take the question from Eunisa right now, or do you want to take it in a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, let's get started with a question. Why not?
Sorry, so if you just want to unmute yourself, go ahead and ask your question. No? All right.
Okay.
All right, Mary, go ahead.
I think we're going to leave maybe the question button for the very end. So whenever you guys have any questions, type them in the chat. I am continuously looking at the chat. So I kind of, we'll catch them where I can. And if something is not addressed until the end, then we're going to have some time at the end to do that. Yeah, let's get started, guys. Adam, if you wouldn't mind going quickly to page 2, and let's start it with just this quick agenda overview, and then we're going to do the introductions, and we'll go to our content for today, right? So as I mentioned to you, we're going to dive a little bit into the future. We're going to first take a look at, why does it at all make sense to become a purposepreneur, and from there we're going to take a deeper look at, okay, if that is what our world is becoming right now, then where in my individual space can I actually make the changes, and what benefits are waiting for those who actually want to take that challenge, right? So we're going to understand a little bit where the purpose sits in our brain. And the last piece, we're going to take a look at, okay, how do I actually make it happen, right? Because we'll talk a little bit about this word purposepreneur. Why does it make sense, and how does it look like? Where in science it is all grounded, but what does it actually entail in terms of behaviors, actions, things that we can get started on today? Okay, so 3 quick questions, and we're going to take it one by one. Before we get started with all of that, let's just do those quick introductions. Adam, over to you. Few words. I know that there's also a special announcement about an exciting podcast, so let's get that out of the way so everybody catches it, and then from there on we'll go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mary. Well, hi, everybody. Super happy that all of you are here with us today. So my name is Adam Beaumier. I'm the co-founder and chief business development officer at My Creative Brain. And I'm from Canada, originally living in Boston in the US right now. So like Mary, it's only 12 o'clock. So we've got still a long part of our day left. Anyways, I actually have a close relationship with the founder and CEO of 1 Million Teachers. Hakeem and I have been friends since 2014. I actually met him when we were doing our undergraduate degree together, and we were doing a social impact project together. We were traveling to South Africa and trying to help a village get access to clean drinking water. So it was my first introduction to that social impact space. It was my first introduction to Hakeem and to a completely different world that I knew nothing about. And it lit this fire inside of me to really help people around the world. And so that was what really drew me to my work with Creative Brain. Aside from that, I also host a podcast. It's called the Comfort Via Discomfort podcast. I'll throw a link in the description. And as Mary alluded to, a special announcement is I actually had Hakeem, the founder of 1 Million Teachers, on as a guest on my podcast, and I just released the episode today. So if you want to check out that episode to get a really unique perspective of the behind the scenes that Hakeem's really faced over the years, you can definitely check that out. Again, I'll send a link in just a few seconds here, and that way you can learn something new about the founder of the company. So super happy to be here. Mary, back over to you.
Fantastic, thank you. So you see, guys, we've got two special things to celebrate with today's masterclass, and we're extremely excited as Creative Brain to be in partnership with 1 Million Teachers. And this is something that has been in works for a while now. And today's masterclass, as we're looking at purpose from as many different angles as possible, really, to try to identify what is it, how do we get there, and what does it, really entail, we are going to take you on a little trip. Yeah, I can't wait to tell you more. So let's dive in. If we move on, we're going to get started with the first exercise. And I need you guys to be extremely active, okay? We're going to be discussing things because that's the only way, really, to get a lot of different perspectives into one discussion, okay? So who can tell me what is on that slide? What's that picture? What is the thing that we're seeing there? You can just unmute yourself and scream it out. You can type it in the chat. Who can guess? What is it?
VR goggles?
VR goggles, yes, correct.
Yes.
Correct. VR headset, correct. Perfect. And how new is it? Can somebody tell me, more or less, give or take, how new / old is this technology?
About 3 years.
3 years, okay. Who can give me
2008.
another guess?
2 years.
2 years, okay. So we're going
I
okay,
guess
newer.
7.
Okay.
7 years.
7. Okay, interesting. Okay, that would put it at mildly old. Okay.
5 years.
5 years, all right. So we're all sort of within that 10-year mark for sure, right? Rather on that beginning end of it. So let's take a look at the next slide and realize that actually it is much older than we all think. Now, the technology, the first virtual world was actually created almost 20 years ago. Can you guys imagine? 2006, you can see on the timeline, was the first company that really released a virtual world as we know it in those goggles right now. So it is almost 20 years that it's been around. Now, if you look at this timeline, what observations could we make? Can everybody just give it a quick glimpse and tell me, what do you observe? What's about that timeline that could stand out? Any guesses? So first one we already said, it's older than on average we tend to think. What else?
There has been an increase in using of those things within that few years.
Okay, there's been an increase. Is that what you can observe from that timeline? That's interesting.
Mentioned.
Okay. What else, guys? Give me at least one more. I'm telling you, this is going to be a workout for the brain today as we speak. Okay, so I want to make,
Okay, I observed that the big players in the industry, in the digital world, are also engaged in the production of these products. Like I see Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook acquiring it in 2021 and so on. So I think it became more popular as the years go by.
Okay, well, that is definitely something that's a good observation. That definitely is. What we will see with a lot of different technologies, right? Like people kind of get used to it, and it becomes the new normal in a way. A buzzword that we heard a lot about pandemic and past time past it. Okay, it involves people. That's something that pop up on the chat, and that is interesting observation. Okay, definitely it does. Three things that I would want you to take a note of is that one, even though we think that we keep up to speed with technology, we keep up to speed with what's happening around us, what innovation and changes are there, actually we don't. It is extremely hard with the connectivity, interdependencies, the complexity of this kind of impossible spider web that's kind of being built as we speak. It makes it impossible to stay on top of every single thing, to be an expert in every single thing anymore, right? So the fact that we all thought it's a little bit newer, and I must admit, like I was guilty of that as well. The first time that I asked myself that question, I also was guessing, somewhere probably around maybe maximum 5 years. And then when really reading into it, I was surprised that it's been around for so long, even though innovation is something that I try to read about on a daily. Still, some things slip through our fingers, right? So the first thing is that there is no longer praise with keeping up to speed with everything. It's just simply too much. We're bombarded every single day with the endless stimuli, right? There was some research done a while back. I think that was 2017. So I would imagine that is an even higher number right now. But then they have measured how much of that new information are we taking in, right? Are we giving to our brain to process? And that was 74 gigabytes. So if anybody kind of can give you a reference to that, it's about 16 full-time movies watched one by one. That's how much new information is hitting us every single day. And that's only new information, right? It's on top of everything else that you've already decided to store. And that was 2017. So that's kind of, in the sense of technology, already outdated data, right? But imagine how much our brain needs to deal with. And therefore, it makes us wander away. It makes us get distracted, lost, confused, overwhelmed, right? There is an endless amount of stimuli that we put our brain through on an every single day. Now, the second thing that I would really want you guys to observe is that if you look at this timeline, it capitalizes on broadly unrelated things at a time. So it's not like one particular thread that just goes like the first evolution, second evolution, third evolution. No. We've got, you know, the World Wide Web, and then we have the virtual world. We have the Bitcoin, and then we have something completely different. It kind of branches out, right? It grows as much widely as it grows vertically. And that means that now access to information is no longer an issue, right? We are seeing our economies to change because of this. We have things that are potentially at the first sight completely unrelated that actually derive from the same thing, that actually interdepend on one another, right? So with those changes, our entire societies are changing. Our entire economies are changing. And we're seeing more and more, especially after the pandemic, the gig economy, more and more people trying to actually establish their own companies. We're seeing new generation and Zs that don't really perceive getting a job as a standard piece of an adult path, right? We see all influencers that think that, okay, this is the job that I'm having. I never want to get the job in the definition of what we knew about 10, 15, 20 years ago. We're seeing so many other trends in the work field, in economy, and the way businesses are built, and in the way we communicate. And that means we're also seeing changes in the way that we think. Because every single person that is growing up with those things that seem new to us is growing as if those things were ever there. So the way that we're processing information, the way that our brain is shaping the thought process is altering as we speak. And the last third piece of it is that it all went through evolutions. There is not a single thing on that timeline that started 10, 5, 3 years ago and is still exactly the same, right? So if we think about it, the most basic human survival skill, which for our brain is the ability, and that's something that differentiates us from animals, is being able to predict future based on the past. But now that particular thought process, the way that we structure our reasoning, is becoming obsolete, right? So actually, there is a lot of discussion right now around among scientists that the brain is not ready as we know it, right? Not in its construction, but as we know it, the level to which we know it, for that change. There are so many different elements that have been, because of the evolution that took hundreds of years to be developed, are now becoming obsolete within years, right? Within months sometimes, and sometimes overnight. Now, if the brain is falling behind the change And certainty, something that our brain absolutely loves. Our brain doesn't really like the change. That's why we keep falling into bad habits, for example, right? Our brain doesn't really like the change. So the certainty, something that the brain wants, the only constant, is no longer a viable request, right? Because the only constant right now is change. So we need to allow things to evolve. We need to show extreme agility in redefining, reinventing, right? Reapplying and refocusing. All of those things need to be absolutely second nature. So if we think about it that way, and if we go to the next page, we'll see that actually we need a whole new set of skills that go as deep as thought processes. We need to be sufficiently self-aware to be able to catch ourselves on falling back into those patterns that our brain is so comfortable with, because it's been there for hundreds of years. Now, because of the technology, connectivity, systems thinking, we need to really start catching ourselves and being aware of what thought process is guiding our actions, so that we become ever relevant, right? We could ask ourselves that in all of those, moving pieces, what is greatness, right? What kind of skills do need to go into that new skill set? And how should we be able to deal, right? The mental dexterity and mental health needs to now be central parts of our development. Because to deal with that much change, to process that much stimuli, and yet in all of those moments be aware enough to catch ourselves on what we're doing and how we are processing that information, that requires extreme mental dexterity and extreme mental health. So those pieces that in the past have not necessarily been front and center in our growth, career paths, right, now needs to become an absolute center of the universe. And if we take a look at how over the years, how over hundreds of years, we've been thinking about purpose, let me show you. We've got on the next page the kind of a quick overview of how different schools of philosophy have been defining purpose, how different schools of philosophy have been looking at the meaning of life, because obviously we're not the first ones that have asked that question, right? It was ever present. And if you look across all of those different examples, you see that some of them are focused on self-discovery. Some of them are focused on the discovery of the environment, and some of them are focused on the discovery of something much bigger than what we know, right? Which we tend to call spiritual. And in all those three categories, we can see how the locus of control is switching. From the moments where we are looking at trying to understand this bigger thing that we might not know, we always tend to go to smaller thing that we know a little bit about and end up with ourselves. But it's always been one or the other. For all of those years, we've always been looking at only one element as if it was a silo, right? Now, because of everything being so interconnected and dealing with so much uncertainty, we need to start looking at things as if they were pieces of the same universe, right? So in this case, we need to start looking across all three views to really be able to align and understand. And I want to bring in three specific philosophers that I think have done great work to really push forward how we understand what purpose is and how it actually drove us to look for it in the brain, right? So the first one, I'm sure everybody's familiar, Socrates, and he brought something called eudaimonic versus hedonic look at the happiness. Now, anybody has any idea? What are those two words? What do they mean? Eudaimonic and hedonic. What is he referring to? What kind of happiness? What kind of categories of happiness could we be dividing that into? Pure guesses, no wrong answers. Anyone?
My name is Harry. Eudaimonic has to do with internal happiness, and hedonic has to do with external happiness.
Very good. Yes, absolutely. And if you look at the little description that is there on the slide, it kind of drove the researchers later on, much later on, to look at how it relates to self-transcending versus self-enhancing perspective on happiness and life. Now, eudaimonic version of happiness comes from self, comes from internal, is intrinsic, right? Whereas hedonic one is looking at collecting materialistic good, chasing something that could be quantified, tangible, and touched, right? Now, Socrates said that an examined life is not worth living. And what he was referring to is that if we don't know why we're living the life we're living, then there's something we're missing. Mark Aurelius said, on the other hand, that don't act like you were going to live 10,000 years. That is a very stoic perspective on things, driven by perfectionism and performance, right? And definitely behind that, we could see that he is actually referring to not wasting time on things that are not worth it, right? Now, if we take it, 100 years forward and we look at Nietzsche, we actually see that he looked at stuff as a reinvention, being the starting and ending point of all things. And I have for you a little bit of a challenge. I want us to watch a very quick video of a story that Nietzsche that Nietzsche told to make people think about how do we discover the freedom of spirit, which for him was sort of equal to being finally able to live the purpose. So let's take a look, let's listen. I want you guys to think about what does every symbol in that story mean. We're going to see a camel, lion, and a baby. Okay, let's go. Can everybody hear it? Because I hear it very, very quietly.
No, we can't hear.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second here. Let me know if you can hear it now.
It's decorated with thousands of glittering scales, and on every scale, all of the things that you must do.
Yeah, but Adam, could you move it a little bit back because I feel like we've lost it. The first sentence. It's.
All things of value have already been written on my scales. The spirit is filled with awe and respect for the dragon, but in realizing the greatness of the dragon, it realizes its own inadequacies. The spirit wishes to serve the dragon and learn everything that it must do so that it may take part in its greatness. The first transformation takes place and the spirit becomes a camel. The camel is a preserver. It studies, absorbs, and upholds the values of the dragon. It's disciplined. It maintains order in the realm by bearing the burdens of others. It takes pride in its ability to bear burdens, and it should. In many ways, this is an act of heroism. The camel bears the burdens of others, and in doing so, lightens their load. But eventually, the camel realizes that not all things should be preserved, and some burdens are too much to bear. It realizes that it's become a slave to the will and values of another. The camel is merely a tool. The dragon which once allowed life to survive and thrive is now the thing that holds it back. The camel yearns for freedom, and so the spirit must transform again. The camel, a beast of burden, becomes the lion. The lion is a destroyer. It confronts the dragon, and for every you shall, it says no. To every you must not, it says I will. The lion stands against tradition and the status quo. It starts to see certain traditions as unworthy of being preserved. Instead of serving the dragon, the lion battles it for freedom. In this moment, the spirit must learn to destroy the thing that it once respected the most. This is difficult because overcoming the dragon means that the lion also has to overcome a part of itself. But this isn't the end. Like the camel, the lion is a reaction. The spirit is still tied to and dependent on the dragon. But this battle for freedom, the courage to say no, opens up a new space of possibility. If destruction is possible, so is creation. If we can fall, then we can rise. A third transformation must take place, and the lion must become the child. The child is a creator. Creation is redemption. All of the mistakes of the past, including our own, can be redeemed if something better can be made from them. The child must learn to forget the past and not hold resentment to those who came before. Those who came before did, after all, fertilize the soil on which they grew. Every form of life preying on each other and giving birth to one another led to the birth of you. Can you redeem all of their pain and suffering? Can your life be used to create something that benefits all of life? The child is a new beginning. It lives by its own values and its own will. It has the potential to redeem the past and give birth to a brighter future. The camel, the lion, and the child. These are the three stages that the spirit must traverse to become free. But most people never even become a camel. The story of the three stages is a story of self-overcoming. It's the story of the one who can become tradition before overcoming tradition. The one who can overcome themselves becomes more powerful.
All right, so how's the story? And now it is over to you guys. Tell me, what do you gather from the story? And who would like to take a spin on what does camel, lion, and a baby stand for? Anyone? So you had three different iterations, right? Three different symbols. What does the camel stand for? Any ideas? So we had this dragon, right? And the dragon knew everything. And the dragon had the rules for everything and had the guidance for everything and had everything planned. If this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then that happens. And there comes a camel. So what's happening in there between that little piece of the video?
Okay, if I may contribute.
Go on, please.
Yes, I see the dragon as an animal that kind of knows everything about what goes on around the world and tries to introduces his own ideas. Then I see the camel as an animal that is ready to shoulder the responsibility of every other person, the burden of every other person. But at a stage, it got tired and frustrated and wanted to be free. It's like he was locked into himself or itself or something. Then I see the lion as trying to disrupt the status quo. That it doesn't have to be your way or this way. Okay, so and wants to kind of disrupt everything that the world stands for. I don't know how to do it, something like that. Thank you.
Okay, no, that is a very good take. Okay, thank you so much. So we've got so far dragon, that's all knowing. Then we have a camel that's sort of like following, accumulating, trying to learn, like kind of storing all of the things that come through and not necessarily having any opinion on them, just kind of, executing, following, and so on. Then we've got the lion who is coming in and starting kind of questioning, like, well, why is this like that? No, I'm not going to do it. Let me do it my way, and so on and so forth, right? The lion is there kind of like trying to be like, it's all cool that this is all known, but what about this, right? It is challenging. How about the baby? Where does the baby come from in this story? What does that mean?
Okay, so I think for me, the baby is enlightenment, a new beginning, a willingness to explore and to create. I think the word create kept coming up. Where I was personally not so sure was when it talked about the baby forgetting the past. Although it did also acknowledge that the past helped to fertilize the land. So the past is useful. So I think it's about now drawing a clear line between what aspects of the past are still useful and acknowledging that there was a past, but not being bogged down by it and being able to go forward and create and be of benefit to oneself and the society.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first of all, kind of side note, obviously, we're not saying that Nietzsche was right about everything, right? We're not necessarily saying like this is the philosophy of life we should all follow. Absolutely not. It is, but it is a nice, interesting story that shows that already so many years ago, right? People were trying to see where those lines are. What prompts us to become a different version of ourselves? And for me, one of the things about that baby is that the last step of the process is just a baby. That was something that I remember, like kind of the first time that I came across the story was like, okay, but the baby is just the beginning. Like the baby has so much to learn. The baby as we know it, right? The baby as we know in terms of every attribute, right? In terms of our definition, in terms of our perspective on life, it is actually the thing that needs to be taken care of. It's not the thing that is just, kind of acknowledging and encompassing the whole universe. So for me, that symbolic element was really how Nietzsche managed to show us that even though we look at certain things as if we discovered them and they are done and we can put a tick on them and so on, it is actually very often just a step in a process that we sometimes are unaware of, right? Now, if we look at all of those things and go actually a little bit further, there was also an author of a very, very tough but very interesting books, Dr. Viktor Frankl, and he said once that he who knows the why can handle any how. And I personally love that quote because it really talks to us about how understanding why we're doing what we're doing, why we're choosing a certain path, why we want a certain type of legacy, is really unleashing an extreme amount of motivation, fuel, and passion in us. And that is something that actually can be traced all the way to the brain. So let's leave the abstract and let's take a look a little bit at science. So with this one, I want you to first, if you remember anything about this slide, brains don't lie, right? But the only thing that we don't know, right, that science doesn't tell us about, right, because it tells us about everything else, but it doesn't tell us how to live the life. And if we really look at this particular picture, right, there are 4 things about the brain that we can really trace to purpose. First, when we look at people who are actively pursuing their purpose, that are thinking about what their purpose is in that self-transcending way, it actually comes down to the active part of the brain that is called ventral stratum, and that part is responsible for, as we know the brain from every other element of science, it's a center of reward. Right? So the first thing to remember is that purpose sits in our reward center. Second very interesting thing that we can kind of trace back to neuroscience is that when we're threatened, when life gets hectic, difficult, stressful, scary, people who follow the self-transcending focus have actually come down to much lower response on amygdala, right? Which is our fear and aggression center. People who follow that self-transcending purpose are actually able to shrink amygdala in stressful situations, which allows them to recover much quicker from the cortisol levels, high cortisol levels, so the stress that we put our brain through. And also, very interesting piece is that that very part of our brain is impacted by how much oxygen it gets, by practicing meditation, and also by practicing skills like resilience. So what does all of that tell us, right? It tells us that actually all of those philosophers from the past that have been talking about eudaimonic happiness, that talked about self-transcending, that talked about reinventing, all of them actually had very same things in common. All of those philosophies touched upon the same elements, which mean that to keep ourselves healthy, our brain at a higher capacity, there is one thing that influences all of them, which is purpose, right? And there are more things that impact those particular elements of the brain, but what is important about all these 4 points mentioned here is that it is up to us. It is unique to us, even to say more, because every single thing that comes through to be analyzed, right? Remember that whatever we see around ourselves needs to be recognized and processed through our brain, right? There is nothing that exists in our consciousness that has not gone through a certain thought process. Whether it was conscious or unconscious, there's not a certain thing in our consciousness that brain had nothing to do with, right? To put it in extremely plain terms. And if we think about it that way, it means that every single thing that we personally go through in terms of our personal experiences, in terms of things that we have been witness to, in terms of how we felt in certain situations. All of those impact and alter how we create and modify our thought processes. And because of that, there are no two unique humans on Earth, right? In that sense. So if we want to become future-proof and really unlock that kind of untapped potential that we still have in us, right? We need to really start looking at our development from a hyper-personalized perspective, because whatever happens to me or with me, right? I'm not sorry for. It is a part of me, it shaped me, it is a part of my way of processing. It is a part of my way of looking at my purpose, at my life, at what I define success. And at the same time, the journey that I've gone through to touch all of those experiences that I've been a part of has also been unique to me. And that translates to the fact that the journey to purpose needs to be hyper-personalized. There is not a one golden rule that we can say, well, if you want to find purpose, just follow those 5 steps, and this is what it's going to be. There's not one statement that's going to be like, hey, if you want to find purpose, go look into that book or go analyze that particular thing. No, purpose is holistic, and so is our life, right? So if we think about it, what's the conclusion? The conclusion is that it is all on you. The conclusion is that we need to start taking ownership of our development. We need to start being able to, as we want to be future-proof, as we want to be relevant in that ever-changing world, we need to be able to understand how do we interact with all the other elements of our system, with all the other elements, and by system, I'm saying everything that's in our environment, right? So it is on you. So becoming a purposepreneur really means first taking ownership of your development path, of your growth. You know yourself best. There's not a single person that can really one-to-one understand and feel your experiences as you felt them. And if every single of those experiences impacted how you process information, how you make sense of the world, how you form opinions, what are your thought processes, and those elements impact our ability to be at our best, and we can trace it back to the thought processes in our brain, it means that it needs to be you who guides the process of creating the strategy for that growth, right? It doesn't mean that you need to know everything. It just means that that journey needs to be guided by you, right? You need to be the centerpiece of it. Now, the second thing is that it is going to evolve. Dynamic is the only way to look at purpose. Because as you are growing and understanding more of yourself, of the environment, and so on, just like in that little story that we went through, you need to be able to perhaps abandon certain things, let go to still remain authentic. Perhaps you have to be very sharp in identifying what dots actually connect across all of those years of experiences that you've been collecting. Maybe there is a red thread that goes through all of them. Being able to actually take a step back and see this and then turn it into behaviors that can help you grow. Those all elements need to be in your new toolkit. And the last thing is that the purpose is holistic, and it needs to be your growth. There's no way in which we can live our purpose from 9 till 5 and then, switch off the lights, close the door and be like, okay, now I'm a different person, right? There is no way in which we can be a leader 9 to 5 and then be like, okay, I'm on a break, right? No, purpose is holistic and your growth is holistic. We take lessons from our personal experiences, professional ones, education, from conversation, from sometimes being just a single bystander in a specific experience, right? And being alert enough to be able to devise what those lessons are and being able to actually see where that purpose comes together. It cannot happen in any type of a silo. So what we believe in is that purposepreneurs are future-proof and focused leaders, right? And it doesn't mean you have to lead an organization. Sometimes it is just leading your own life. Sometimes it's leading your family. Sometimes it's leading your classroom. Sometimes it is leading a much bigger organization or a community or a society, right? But it is being future-proof and focused. It is having the clarity on the impact that we want to create and being driven by what fulfills me to pursue that goal, right? Being so deeply aware of my being, right? And then because of that, balanced. So we can sustain the top performance across a period of time that's much more prolonged than just us having a good day. It's turning that purpose into the fuel that gets us through the bad days, through the good days, that gets us through anything and everything, right? So Purposepreneur, we believe, is the most dynamic and relevant, hyper-personalized approach to how we grow. And around that, we have created 5 milestones, of which the first one is available to you guys today. And we touched upon every single aspect of the modules that you're going to find there. We have talked a little bit about what we understand by purpose. There is so much more about that. We dive deep into how that translates to today's science. We talk about how can we look for that in everyday life. We also dive extremely deep onto self-awareness and trying to analyze and understand and face. Sometimes it's also about facing and face what has happened, what does that mean to us, what can we take, what can we let go of, and how will that serve us going forward, right? And finally, we look at building mental muscles because, as we said, it's a holistic journey. So we have to make sure that every single piece of us is healthy. Every single piece of us is at peace, right? And every single piece of us is ready to perform at that highest level. So all of those things and a little bit more, you're going to find in that milestone 1 of the Purposepreneur. I hope that this at least sparked your curiosity about what else is there in designing your purpose journey. That milestone 1 really hopefully ends for you with a tangible design of how do you want your purpose journey to look like. That's it, guys.
I'm just gonna jump in here. First of all, thank you so much for going through the entire presentation. To everybody here, hope you've learned a lot more about purpose, how important it is, where it comes from in the brain. And just to be crystal clear, our Purposepreneur course is available on the 1 Million Teachers platform. It's available for free to every one of you. So you can definitely jump on there anytime. We've already got close to 100 people from 1 Million Teachers taking the course. So it would be fantastic if you could join. And there's also, once you go through milestone 1, there is a feedback form. So once you go through the course, we'd love to hear from you to understand what you really liked, what you think could be improved, and overall just how the course really resonates with you and how you can utilize it in your life. So would really appreciate if you do join the course. It is available to all of you for free as of today, so you can access it anytime. So thank you so much. And I think we've got about 5 minutes left. If we've got a few questions that we can answer or comments from anybody, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Mary and Adam. Thank you for the overview of the Purposepreneur. It's really clarified a lot of things. I started, I think I'm on the first few pages of the module. It's quite intriguing. Yeah, it's all about finding that purpose, finding that reason, and yeah, I got up to the point where it was like, who would you take along with you on your journey and things like that. So it's quite interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Fatima. Thank you so much for letting us know. And as you go through it, we'd love to hear from you to learn more about your experience and everything. And to everybody else, yeah, there are a number of different exercises through milestone 1 that will help you sort of deep dive into that purpose and help you figure it out, because it's not the most obvious answer to everybody. And so we've designed a number of different exercises based in research, based in science, to help you kind of dissect this big, huge thing that is purpose and to really go through it step by step. So really hope that it helps Fatima and helps a number of you identify your purpose, or at least help you take a step within that journey. Yes, Rashida, definitely very interesting to explore. And like I said, really open to hearing your feedback.
I think Morgan, you raised your hand. Morgan, you can unmute yourself and speak.
All right, okay. Very good evening, everyone. Yeah, going through this particular training today, I will just summarize it that where you don't discover the purpose why you exist, you're actually going to live for nothing. Without purpose, there's no direction. Without purpose, your passion can be misdirected. So thank you so much, Adam and Mary, for giving us the foundation and helping us to critically look at what has wasted quite a lot of talent, quite a lot of life, quite a lot of things. You see, people get far, they go far in age, in life, they just look back and say, why? This is not what I want. So thank you for this kind of session. We hope that we'll have much more. And Ali, Fatima, thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morgan. I really appreciate your perspective. And we agree. That's why we created it, because, and statistics back it up, where people that follow their purpose are much more fulfilled and happy and have less regrets at the end of their life than people that don't follow their purpose. And Mary and I are strong believers that, you know, we're all put on this earth for a reason, and you might as well do whatever it is that you love or that your heart is pulling you to do, because we only have a limited time here, right? Again, we don't live for 10,000 years. Alrighty, I think we can wrap things up here. It's 1 minute before the hour, so I just want to say thank you first of all to Fatima for hosting us. It was fantastic that you set this up for us, and thank you to everybody that's here, all the participants, and for your engagement and for your attention and for your time. We really appreciate it, and we really look forward to having you join the Purposepreneur course and giving us some feedback once you've gone through some of the modules. Marian, do you want to say anything?
Well, thank you all guys for being here today, and I'm very excited to see how you guys progressing through the course and what you think. Of course, as Adam said earlier, there are plenty of places where you can reach us at, so don't be shy. Connect with us, stay in touch, and I'm sure that we are going to have some more of those moments to connect with you like this in a masterclass. So yeah, let us know, let Fatima know if there are any maybe particular subjects within that purpose journey or within the future proving that you will guys to hear more, learn more about. And yeah, we are here for you.
Absolutely. And somebody commented saying that they weren't able to hear most of it. Fatima, yes, it was recorded. Fantastic. So are you going to be distributing it afterwards? Are you going to be sending
Yes,
everybody the
I'm
link?
going to paste
Great.
it on the WhatsApp group.
Perfect.
I'm going to paste the recording on the WhatsApp group in about 10 minutes. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Mohammed?
Yeah, sorry, Mohammed, that you couldn't hear, but you will hear the recording. I think maybe it was your network connectivity, because we could hear them.
Clearly, we can.
Yes, we could hear them, Mohammed. So don't worry, I'm going to post the recording on the WhatsApp. We can't hear you, Mohammed, we can't hear you. So
Right,
I
well,
think
thank
it
you.
was
Yeah.
something about the network connectivity in Sokoto, maybe, but I am going to pick the recording. Don't worry,
Perfect.
I'm going to put the recording up.
That sounds
Fantastic.
great. That sounds
Awesome.
great.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate everybody's time, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank
All
you.
right,
too.
Bye,
thank
guys.
you. Thank you
Thank
again,
you.
Adam and Mary.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.